Uh, Thanks again, Gina, for taking the time to chat today. Um, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Lou and how this year has been going for you guys so far with um, the loss and the grief and you guys navigating everything in his passing.
Sure. So on January 23rd, my husband died from melanoma cancer. And even still saying that right now, I'm like, what am I saying? Right.
Right.
Um, so Lou got cancer in 2020. And so his first bout of melanoma cancer. And then on July of 2023, he was cancer free. September like 15th,
Hmm.
he was diagnosed with another bout of melanoma cancer, and it was a little spot right here on his arm. He had
Hmm.
that removed, and the surgeon said, mentioned that the lymph nodes that he took out were it was aggressive. So we didn't really think much. We just kept thinking, of course, he'll be
Right.
fine. And on November 5th, he had, well, October 31st, or no, October 25th, he had his surgery. November 5th, his surgeon wanted him to have a MRI. And honestly, I think the MRI did him in because what happened literally, I mean, we're talking maybe a half hour after he had the MRI, he started getting really severe pain in his eye. And he thought, oh, I'm getting a migraine. And it was a really, like, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Wound up taking him to the emergency room on Sunday. And, actually on Monday. So this started Saturday night. Monday, I took him to the ER because I'm like, something's not right here. This is not a migraine.
Hmm.
And the ER doctor was like, hey, we looked at the MRI, it doesn't show cancer in his brain. And so we were like, cool, what is it? And he's like, I feel like it's something with something in his ocular nerve. So he sent us right over to this ophthalmologist, was amazing. And the guy's like, I want you to come back tomorrow. I want to look at your MRI. Interestingly enough, he had had melanoma cancer himself. And so there was something that was like stirring in him. So we came back in and he said, I was up all night. I couldn't sleep. He goes, I knew there was something. And he said, I found it. And so there was a tumor behind his optic nerve. Well, it turned into this like, okay, we got to get surgery and we got to do all these things. And then it was like, well, no, we're going to do radiation. That was the worst. Um, he had So what happens with radiation is that cancer cells they'll expand. And
Okay.
with Lou, because it was such a small place, what happened was it was
Mhm.
pushing his eye out. And he was losing, yeah, it was horrible. And so his eye was just swollen, it was big,
Right.
um and he only was able to do 3 sessions of that, because it
Mhm.
was just so painful and he couldn't do it.
Right.
And then we started the immunotherapy, but they had 2 separate drugs because it was supposed to be, this aggressive form, and he just couldn't handle it. He was
Right.
just really, really sick and just didn't want to do it. And then we're waiting on this cancer pill, and we just never got it. And mind you, this was started in November,
Right.
and it just progressed so quickly.
Yeah.
Um, the week before, he I basically was like, I called the doctor and I'm like, what is going on? We're not getting the pill. I don't know what we're going to be doing. The doctor was just like, I think you need to talk to your family
Mhm.
and get Lou on hospice. And and the weird thing is, I had said, I had talked to the doctor, and then Courtney came downstairs, my daughter, and she said, Dad wants to talk to you. And so when I went
Mm,
upstairs, Lou said, I want to change um, the plan. And I said, I've already taken care of it. So he knew that this was it. So in that time, we just talked, and I just asked him if he was scared. I asked him if and he said no. I asked him if he knew what was happening. He said, yeah, that he was dying. I think I was more scared for him,
mhm,
which is funny because I'm a believer and I knew where he would go, but I was really scared. And just like the unknown of everything. Um, our last moments with Lou were really beautiful. Our whole family was here. My son played all of his songs that they connected with, which I thought was awesome. And he was the one I actually had to say, I had to go in. I was talking to Lou, and I was like, son, honey, you can go. And then I was kind of like, man, you are so stubborn. You never listen to me. So I'm going to get your son. So I got Chad and I just said, hey, will you do mom a favor? And he's like, sure, mama, whatever. And he just went in and I said, I want you to tell your dad it's okay for him to go. And he went in and just started playing music. And then I thought, our family, we do things
mm,
like dance parties. So I just said, hey, we're going to do a dance party. And I got everybody up there. In the meantime, Courtney was like, what do I tell Judah? And I was like, well,
mm,
just ask him if he wants to say goodbye. And of course he did. And so we're all in here. Judah's showing us dance moves of Pops and Lou's breathing at that time. He was snoring the loudest snore I've ever heard. It was like a roar,
mm,
to be honest with you. And as soon as everyone came into the room, his breathing started to change and the snoring quieted.
mm.
And we were just putting music on, and we were, kind of swaying around. And Judah started to ask, 7-year-old started to ask, what's your favorite thing about Pop? And he went around everybody in the room. And then there was one of the songs was the Bee Gees. And it was How Deep Is Your Love? And Matt, I'll never forget this moment because I I remember looking at Lou's eyes, and he was losing the other eye too at this point. And he said, or he didn't say anything. I was just looking at him, and the song was going, and I was singing to him, and um, I saw him look at me with his eye, and it was as if it wasn't that he took his last breath, in my opinion. It looked like something took his breath from him, and it was peaceful. And I mean, we grieved and cried, but it was a beautiful experience. And the, the, the amount of love that was in that room, it was just beautiful. Since then, I've gone up and down in, just grief and sorrow and loss, but yet also there's joy too. It's just such a weird freaking ride, to be honest with you. It's like one minute I'm like, I got this, and the next minute I'm like, I don't know even what I have. Yeah.
Man, so let's back up even further. Um, Tell me about when you and Lou met. Um, who went up to who saw who first, who initiated um everything. I kind of imagine in just my my time with you guys and the conversations and times that I've had with Lou. Um, him being the slightly stubborn guy, he would have pursued and chased. Um, and so tell me about how that first went, the early parts of your guys' relationship.
Sure, we met at a junior college, and I was dating somebody, and he met
I
he met my boyfriend at the time. He was in a class
uh-huh.
with him, and
Okay.
he was like, "Oh, you got to meet my girlfriend," and big mistake
He's
I
like,
made.
don't mind if I do.
Big mistake.
uh,
Lou came down, and he's about 7 years older than me, so. Um, I remember when he came walked in and he was just so funny and he was just larger than life, and
uh,
I immediately was like, "Oh, I like this guy." But I was dating someone, so I was
right.
very respectful of that, and but I just knew like he was just funny, and he was very yeah, he was just different. And in that about a year later, so I had broke up with that boyfriend, and a year later, I saw Lou again. He had just gotten out of jump school because he was a Green Beret.
Mhm.
He was in the Marine Corps, and then he was a Green Beret in the Army. And I was like, I saw him in the comment hall, and I was like, "Oh, hey!" And he was like, "Oh, hi!" And he's like, "You still dating that guy?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "We should go to a movie sometime." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so we went to go see. You know what movie we saw?
Oh, hit me with it.
Okay. Why I thought this we saw it was Rambo: First Blood.
Yes. Yes. I love this. I
I'm
love
like,
this.
yeah. And I was like, "Sure." You know. And then from there
Was
we
that your idea or his idea?
oh no, it was not my idea. He's like, "Yeah,
Oh,
Rambo: First
he's like,
Blood,
yeah,
it's coming out."
this is the perfect first date movie. Let's go.
Totally.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, we that's how the love affair started. And um, you know, I like to tell people that I don't want to romanticize anything because Lou and I have had quite the road, right? There's
Yeah.
many things that have happened in our marriage and in our path, and yet the one thing that I do think is that both of us, we're not quitters. And I mean, there were times where, it was like, I mean, I've been married for, well, it'll be 39 years. It would have been 39 years on May 17th. Um, so, yeah, when I talk to young women, and because they'll be like, oh, you guys, you loved each other so much. Yes, I did love him. But I also don't want to romanticize the fact that
Mhm.
marriage is difficult and we had
Uh,
our own stuff going on too. And
right.
also we had trials, but
Right.
this one thing is that we just weren't quitters, neither of us. We
Right.
stuck it out, and and I loved him, you know. And I think the most beautiful thing is I was able to love him into the arms of Jesus.
Yeah.
That a gift.
That was huge. And yeah, I remember during some of the hard times, the thing that I always noticed and loved and appreciated about you guys is that yes, you guys aren't quitters. You guys have this mentality of it's not an arrogance thing. It's more of a you don't care about the thoughts and opinions of other people on you guys. The golden thread that I've always noticed and felt from you guys is just this love that you guys have for each other that was so deep. It didn't matter the opinions and thoughts of other people around you guys. Um, I know that at one point in time when we were both in a setting that could have been extremely judgmental. I'll say that in the evangelical setting, um, there was some
Mhm.
elements that uh, fully knowing, having seen how the sausage is made when I was in ministry, I know the conversations that people have amongst themselves, and the unchristian behavior of some Christians. Um, and the thing I always loved is you guys didn't bat an eye at those things. You guys didn't care about those things. The love that you guys had for each other and the pursuit that you guys both had, especially in that season that I was able to witness, the pursuit that you guys had for truth and the divine. It was such a beautiful thing and an inspiring thing to me. Even though I was much younger, I wasn't married, I didn't have a family yet, um, but it was very tangible to me, the deep love that you two have for each other, for your children, um, and at the time for the Lord. Um, and it was an absolutely beautiful thing for me to witness that. Um, so you guys are dating. Um, where was this junior college at? Where did you guys find yourself at when you guys first met? Because you guys were in Chicago for some point. Am I mistaking that?
Yeah. Yeah, we both met in Chicago. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So you guys were
Yeah, we
Chicago.
met in
So you
Chicago.
guys Blackhawks
Mhm.
fans, so I won't hold it against you. The uh, and so when you guys first started dating, married, uh, with Chad and Court, was all of that in Chicago, or how was that moving around? Was he still in the military at that time? I can't recall. Give me some timelines of the relationship and the story, for some context for you guys.
Yeah, we moved from Chicago because he wound up getting commissioned in the military. So he finished college,
Mhm.
got his college education, and then we moved to Arizona because he had to go to OBC, which is Officer Basic Course, and
Okay.
we lived there for several years. Courtney was actually born in Arizona, and then we
Okay.
moved to California because he wound up going into the private sector. So he got a job, got out of the military. Um, I sort of regret having him get out of the military because that man loved the military. He was in the Marine Corps for 6 years, and then he was in
Okay.
the Army for maybe 5 years. But
Okay.
I think he would have stayed in, but I saw a lot of marriages crumbling in the military, and I was like,
Hmm.
I don't think we'd make it, you know. And
Right.
so we discussed it, and he wound up getting the private sector and he was a salesman and just got a sales job. And so we moved to California, and that's where we started. We started in California. Neither of us were Christians at the time, and
Hmm.
I became a Christian. Courtney was around 2.5, but what happened for me, how I became a Christian is I was raised, I knew who God was, but I didn't have a relationship with God. And
Hmm.
I wound up getting a job. I was like 3 days into this job that I was selling cellular telephones. Yeah, it was like this small little office and was for this with this young black woman who was, she was a tiny little woman, and I didn't know that I was in the bad area in Long Beach. So, where I think it's Atlantic, that street, yeah, no bueno. I didn't know.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
my third day on the job, um, held at gunpoint. Um, we actually these one guy came in and I noticed my boss was getting on the floor, and I was like, that's weird because I was on the phone. Next thing I know, I had a gun in my head. Um,
Oh.
he wanted us to lay down. She looked at me and said, don't lay down. Just take off your shoes. I was wearing a dress and heels, and she's like, take your shoes off. And I was like starting to panic a little. No, not a
Hmm.
little, a lot. And I
Right.
was handing him my wedding rings. I was giving him whatever. Here's the keys to the car, whatever. Please don't kill us, kind of a thing. And at this moment, there was like three guys that came in. The fourth guy that came in, I thought, oh, this guy is just going to put us in a closet. And no, he was not. He actually, at when he came in, he said, okay, let's blow their effing heads off. And she got up and ran towards a door. This is when I realized there's something bigger than me, because the door that she had to pull was this big wooden door, and then she had to push
Uh-huh.
a security door, screen door out.
Okay.
So three of them went at her. I ran to the back trying to get out of a security screen door that was locked, and one of the boys came and got me. And I say boys, they're all, I didn't, at the time, they were all between 16 and 18. And that boy dragged me out in the center room, and I was just crying. I'm like, please don't. I have a 2-year old, please. And we get out, and she's gone. I'm like, three guys came at her, hit her in the head with the gun. She had the will to frickin' live. Got out, him and I just staring at each other. I'll never forget it. And we both just took off. We just ran out the door. I started running. I took a right and I looked and I was like, oh, that's the alley. So I turned around. I was running in a panic. We passed each other. And as we passed each other, we looked at each other. He had just as much panic as I did on his face.
Uh-huh.
And I wound up, there's a restaurant, a corner on the corner, and
Hmm.
ran in there. She was being taken care of. The police came. I never went back to work after that.
Yeah.
I, yeah, I was traumatized, and
Consider this my 2 weeks, and I'm not showing up.
yeah, I did not go back. But you know what's funny is I happened to live across the street from a church, right across the street from
Hmm.
First Baptist Church. And I
Hmm.
was like, something, I remember laying in bed and I told Lou, I said, something saved me. I should have died. Come to find out that they had shot several people that day. Um,
Oh my
so I
gosh.
went in, and it happened to be around Palm Sunday. And I remember sitting in the back of the church. Um, and I just sobbed as the pastor was talking about Jesus' crucifixion. I had known about it, I'd seen him on a cross, but I'd never really received, like that type of love. Anyway, so I wound up giving my life to Christ that day and went home and told Lou that he needs to be the spiritual leader of our home and that he has to accept Jesus and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, nope.
He's like, I'm good.
So spent the first year doing that, like, and
Yeah.
then and when I had met a really sweet woman, and she basically changed. Her and I just we met. She mentored me, and then she just said, I think it's time to stop saying anything. So I didn't talk about God at all with Lou. I stopped underlining things and putting it on his, pillow, and
Uh,
just let God do what God was going to do. And it's interesting because at that time, I think it was the Gulf War, I think. And there
okay.
was a guy that my friend knew who was like this big burly guy, and he was pretty macho, and Lou, being in two branches of the military, obviously macho. And
Yep.
he said,
Yep.
"Hey Lou, why don't you come with us to see Greg Laurie?" And and Lou was like, "Oh, all right, I'll
Got
go."
him.
And Greg Laurie, when he preached that day, it was like I remember just going, because it was all about the Gulf War, and Lou was really like
Hmm.
it. It touched him. So he accepted
Right.
Christ that day. I'll never forget it. He raised his
Mm.
hand and went forward, and my girlfriend at the time was like pushing me, go with him, go with him. And I was like, what is happening? And funny thing is, though, on the way home, we did not talk.
Oh,
I was afraid to say
yeah, I can
anything because
imagine.
I thought I'm gonna mess this up. So I said
I'm,
nothing. He said nothing.
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And this
and
is this
that
is
you though
at the
then
time
it
with
just was
the
like a
Greg Laurie.
slow it was a slow boil. You there? Are you there?
Sorry. So this is at the time with
Okay.
Greg Laurie. Was he doing the large things at like Angel Stadium and whatnot? Was this that time?
So no, this was at literally it was such a small, intimate, more he was doing Monday night Bible studies.
Oh, so
And they were
this
in
predates all the big
at Calvary
conferences.
Chapel.
Gotcha. Okay,
Oh yeah. Predates everything.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then we
So
spent
then,
that,
what was that like in
then
the
and
early?
it's funny because
So what was that like in
well,
the
the early
early
days
days?
were you know,
Sorry.
I think I got pretty religious.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, you were a '90s Christian. That's as a what's that comedian Nate Bargatze said that was the most Christian of all the Christians.
Yep. Exactly. And I was that. I mean, I was like, "Oh no, we can't have troll dolls." you know.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I was definitely, I think, yeah, no troll dolls, cabbage patch dolls, come on,
Yeah.
like all the
Yeah.
things,
Demons live in them.
and then, we what?
I said you
What'd you
can't have
say?
those demons live in them.
No, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was
No. No
definitely
Halloween.
religious and
No.
only
Yeah.
listened to Christian music and,
Yep.
like all of the things. And well, we did do Halloween. We did do Halloween, but it was definitely, it was, yeah, no scary stuff. I know.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. Um,
Where's my
but
pearls?
yeah, it was interesting. And, I was like forcing my kids to go to church, Sunday morning, Sunday
Mhm.
evening, and yeah, just so funny. You look back and you're like, man, like I just dove right into like religion versus relationship.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was like, in
For
the
sure.
Catholic Church, they're so religious. And I was like, I was doing the same damn thing.
Yep. Exactly. And so then was Chad born before um, uh, Lou decided to take the step, or was Chad born after that? I can't remember the gap between Courtney and Chad.
No, Chad was born after. Yeah, Chad was born
Okay.
after. Um, yeah, he's 3 years younger than Court.
Okay. All right. So then
And he was born in
it's about a
California.
year. Okay. So then it's about a year or so from when you became a Christian to when Lou decided as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then what
Yeah.
was that
So
year
I became a
that
Christian
year like for you?
when Lou became a Christian that
So
year.
the yeah the time from when you were a Christian, because like you said, you were trying to leave little hints and trying to push them and stuff, and then you finally said, you know what, I need to stop doing this. Um, but I know that for my mom, of it being, gosh, I don't even know how long, 40 plus years that they've been married, and her trying to love my dad into Jesus. Um, I know that initial conversion experience and the desire to help bring someone and welcome them in,
Mm-hmm.
and being met with the resistance of it. So, what was that initial time like when you're trying to pursue this love? You desire to have Lou pursue it with you, and he's refusing. What was that year like, for your guys' relationship, for your heart, um, until he finally said, "Yeah, I'm in."
Oh, it was totally difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just because like, I knew, like, this is, I knew what it was. I knew, like, how Jesus could transform his life and all of the stuff. And when I stopped talking, um, it was hard because it's hard to shut up, and not say anything. So I will say it was very challenging. And,
Hmm.
but I knew that I also had to, like, look inside of myself and be like, why am I trying to be the Holy Spirit here? Like, why am I, trying to manipulate all of this? Like, because then
Mm.
it's not going to be a true conversion. And
Hmm.
that's why I didn't actually say anything when Lou did, because I was like, I don't want to mess this up. Like, I know I can mess
Yeah.
up a lot. And, but I also feel like, in the end, I feel like I was still the spiritual leader in our home. And
Hmm.
it probably took me till I started coaching to realize that, till I started when I got my first coach, which was in
Hmm.
2019, actually,
Okay.
that I, and so that was all those years that I was like, I wish you could be the spiritual leader, but Lou knew Jesus and he loved him and he
Hmm.
went to church and he did all the things. So I
Hmm.
think what's interesting is that we have this idea, and sometimes I think that the church just, like, messes up a little bit there. That,
Hmm.
the man must be the spiritual leader, the woman, being submissive, and but I wasn't being submissive. I was, like, wanting to lead, because I knew,
Hmm.
like, that I had that calling to do that. And
Hmm.
Lou didn't have the calling to do that. He definitely wasn't, like, milk toast about it, but he definitely, well, I was a spiritual leader. And when I realized that
Hmm.
it was okay for me to still be the spiritual leader, even though I am a woman, um, it was okay. I felt like it just seemed to just be like, I'm a worship leader by nature. Like, I know,
Yeah.
I feel and sense God differently than a lot of people do.
Hmm.
And that is actually okay, you know. So it was, I would say, the years of wanting something, and God already said, like, I called you. I called you to
Mm.
this, and you're going to love your family into this. That was really powerful for me.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you think that that created any uh, any wedges between you and Lou, or any hints of bitterness when you were desiring for him to be the spiritual leader, the
Oh,
evangelical male example, or was
yeah.
like, yeah,
No, there was lots of bitterness. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
ha-
honestly, until I really started to kinda, I don't like to use the word because I think it's a word that's being used a lot, but deconstruct my relationship with the church and
hmm,
Christ. And when I started to change, like, the outlook of it, that, the church made a lot of mistakes at the time. They didn't know that. I don't, like, blame the church. I wanted Lou to, like, get it, like, don't you get it? You're
mm,
supposed to be the leader of our home. And, you know, that road was really difficult for a long time. There were in and out where I was like, it's fine, whatever. And then I'd be like, like, but when I said, about 2019 is when I really was like, oh, I'm the spiritual leader of our home.
hmm,
And that was okay. And
right,
not needing to manipulate anything, or manipulate
mm,
God, or manipulate the
mm,
scenarios, and just loving Lou where he was.
hmm.
and being okay with that.
Hmm. Do you think that your guys' time early on in in church kind of create that expectation as to like this is what man does, this is what man needs to be, this is what father needs to be, and it became a um, a comparison thing that distracted from the what is, or what was like, did it give you the early impressions as to the expectation to constantly chase and achieve, and then the frustration of it not becoming reality?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Wanting what I thought was what everybody else had,
Mm,
right? You're seeing all the other women who are strong leaders and their home and their marriages are like, um, you know, you just see that they're both connected spiritually. And of course, I was super hungry for that. And,
right.
um, you know, I think also I am a high achiever.
Hmm.
Uh, and I also am a pleaser, and I think I wanted to please God.
Mm,
And was definitely I stepped into a lot of like Sarah mentality, just going ahead and doing things that, like I thought, oh, this I got to do this, this is the thing, and I've run ahead of God a lot, and I would say even in this grieving process, I've like had to been like, oh my gosh, relax, like simmer down, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, simmering down is hard.
Yeah. Where do you think that high achievement, um, because I'm really similar in that way, that high achievement, um, always looking for perfect execution, always looking for performing at my absolute best. And I know where my wiring comes from, both in the healthy place and the unhealthy place. For you, where do you think that has its beginnings at in your life? Was it childhood? Was it initial conversion experience and the expectation of church? What kind of cultivated that performance and that high achieverness in you?
I think it was both. I grew up in a pretty volatile home, and I remember being a kid and my mom like making fun of me of something that I had
Mm,
written. I had my one of my really really close friends, who's still a very close friend of mine. We were in high school and we both had to write a paper, and my mom critiqued
hmm.
mine so much that it made me actually think that I wasn't a good writer. And I spent many years going, "Oh, I can't write," because she critiqued me so harshly. And
Mm,
um, you didn't get a lot of attention unless you were good. So, I had to be really, really good to get that loving attention. And when I became a Christian, I just brought that along. Like I guess God is expecting this high expectation of me instead of me
yeah,
being, come to me as a little child. Like, wait, what?
yeah, yeah. That doesn't compute all the time. Of like no, come to me as a little child before the invitations weren't met. When in your house growing up, did you have siblings?
I did. I had three brothers. I have a twin brother and I have two younger brothers.
Okay. Okay. And so was that always like, was there a lot of like one-upsmanship trying to um, get that attention and get that affection by earning it?
No, we were all very protective of each other because our home was pretty
Mm,
volatile. So
okay.
I'm the oldest, and I was kind of like mom to my brothers. And
Mm,
because my mom was very just she was a hard person. And my dad was volatile because my mom was that way, so he didn't know any other way but then to be, you know, yeah, he came at us with more anger than and my dad was a very kind man, but he
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to control his temper. And so, growing up, that's what I viewed. I didn't view God that way. Like I didn't view him as like, do it, but I wanted to please.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand when other people didn't want to do the same thing. And it was really,
Oh, I
right?
freaking hate those people. It's like that they can just hang out and like relax in his presence. I'm like, wait, why aren't you performing right now? Why aren't you tap dancing to get him to look at you? How are you? Yeah, that they
Right?
annoy me.
You're like, how did you do that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't you
Oh
know
my
there's
gosh.
there's a rule?
Yes, we have to earn daddy's love. One,
Yeah.
two, three. Earn
Yeah.
daddy's love.
It's not enough that he died on a cross for you.
Yes, yes, yeah. So then, so let's fast forward a little bit. With the church, did you guys end up going to the church that was right by your house for a little bit, or how did that work out? The
No,
early stages
actually,
for you guys.
it's kind of funny. Actually, we met a couple in a park, and they had a daughter around the same age as Courtney, and they were in a network marketing business, and they invited us over
Okay.
to their house, and they, like showed us, the business plan and everything, and even at that time, I was like, oh, we should do this because it had like a God centeredness about it. And I was like, oh, Lou, this will be great. And, I was like all about the manipulation, I
Yeah,
was like, this is going to be awesome. He's going to be a great leader and we're going to make a lot of money. That didn't happen. Yeah,
yeah.
it didn't happen. But they had gone to a church. And it's so funny because I always tell people I was saved in a Baptist church, went to a Reformed Dutch church, went to an Assembly of God church, and then I went non-denominational. So I have done it
Yeah.
all. I just haven't gone to
Yes.
a Jewish church or,
Yeah.
so yeah, I've done it all.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, so then, as you guys are, you guys are, you guys have your family. You guys are doing the church thing. Lou's working. When did you start? Because I know that, I mean, you've got, I believe, multiple albums that you've recorded. You've led worship for years and years and years. When did that start for you? And was Lou uh, supportive of that, encouraging of that? Was he like, go get it, or was he hesitant about that? What was that part of that
It's
stage getting
funny.
birth?
He was probably my biggest supporter. He's the reason why I remember coming to him like, I feel like I really want to do some recording. And I wound up talking to the worship leader at the church that we were going to at the time, which same church that she
Hmm.
went to. And he was like, oh, I know this guy. And I called the guy up, who happened then became my producer. But I um, called him. I'm like, hey, I heard that you do this, and I'd really like to meet you. And he was like, oh, okay, and I brought a track tape at the time. That's when you had track tapes. Remember that? So I brought a
Oh yeah.
track tape, and I went in, and he was like, okay, well, just sing for me. So it was him and his wife, and I sang a song, and he was just blown away. And he said, honestly, when I was talking to you, I was like, we'll see. And he said, as soon as you started singing, I was like, oh, I got to work with this person. So we did a CD, and Lou was so supportive. Lou was always supportive of me,
Yeah.
like always.
That it was very obvious. It was very obvious.
Yeah. Like I don't think I'll ever, no other man could ever feel that because he literally, he would videotape me while I was worshiping. He was just, yeah, he really
He
believed.
was.
And I think because of my music, that's what drew Lou to Jesus. Um,
Mm,
More and more all the time. Like he would just be, I'd come back after led worship and I'd come and sit down in the seats and he would just have tears. It's like that was so beautiful. It touched his soul. And that, if anybody was ever, you know, uh, moved, it was him. And so he was very supportive. We had some really heavy players on our CD. I say ours because we both were part of it, right? But I was like the least important person on the CD, and I was the one that actually wrote the songs and sang. But I mean, we had like Bill Champlin from Chicago singing backup. I had Joseph William, who's John Williams' son from Toto. He sang backup. I had like one of the most amazing drummers, Vinny Caliuta, who's like one of the top drummers of the world, played. And actually, he's a Christian, and he actually read all my charts before playing, and it was just so amazing. We recorded in Elton John Elton John's producer's recording studio with one of those
oh,
with the drummer. I mean, it was just like all these things that I'm just like, man, God, you like made this way. And during that time though, Lou's company was being investigated.
mhm.
They're being investigated by the state of California. His boss was not paying taxes on product. And I didn't know this at the time, but then Lou went to a men's retreat. He had never gone to a men's retreat before, but he obviously knowing like, oh, they're being investigated. So he shared with all these men what was happening, and they were encouraged him to talk to me. And I'll never forget it. I was folding laundry, and we're getting ready to finish up the recording, and I was gonna, do a concert at the church and everything like that. And he was like, "Hey, just so you know, like I'm being investigated." I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, this is happening." He goes, "But nothing's gonna happen to me. You know, I just work for the company. I don't have any partnership in it or anything like that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Phew, whew, that didn't happen."
Yeah.
So, it it's amazing to me because that CD was so beautiful. I
Mhm.
co-wrote and wrote those songs, and I would listen to them now, and I'm like, oh, just like where what I wrote, just so yeah, 90s. But it was, I was like trying to be the next Stephen Curtis Chapman. But anyway, so I I do set up a concert third day. Um, I mean, I do this concert. People got saved at it. It was just beautiful. It was so exciting. This was on a Sunday. On Monday morning, we get a call that his boss is being extradited from St. Thomas, and his son is going to be arrested, and get prepared for Lou to be arrested. And I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" So I Chad, it happened to be right that week before Thanksgiving. Courtney had to go to school. Chad was home for the week, so I took Chad over to a friend's house. I come back and I see a lot of cars with blacked out windows, and I was like, "Oh no." So I went inside. I'm like, "I think they're here." And we get a call, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Seavey, we're here. We have to arrest you. You need to come out." And so Lou told me not to come out. He's like, "You stay in the house." So now, mind you, I had invited all my neighbors to this concert, to this Christian concert. And my husband getting arrested the next day. I was like, "Oh man, the enemy, man, he doesn't wait a minute." He does not wait a minute. So
He's like, I'll show you for getting people saved.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, it was crazy. It was on Rush Limbaugh. It was crazy. They arrested them. He spent 3 days in county jail, got out on Thanksgiving. And I remember us sitting around the table, and friends had brought over turkey dinner, and we're just sitting there with the kids and just grateful and thankful. But now we knew we're going to be on a long journey of trying to get Lou from having to go to prison. So we spent a
Mhm.
long haul on court dates. And in the meantime, we moved from California back to Chicago because at the time,
Mhm.
Lou felt like it'd be better if I lived by family. Hindsight,
Mhm.
shouldn't have done that. Should have stayed in. Because then I had to like fly from California to a state prison. And he was sentenced to 4 years in prison and served two, but it was
Mhm.
in it was Lancaster prison in California. So
Mhm.
yeah, that changed the trajectory of everything because we had bought a house in Illinois, but I had to short sale it. It was right in
Mhm.
2008.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't sell the house, so I had to short sell it,
Mhm.
and our dog died. I mean, there were so many things, and I remember my son when my dog Molly, we were putting her down because she was having seizures, and we had to put her down. And my son looked at me and he goes, "2008 sucks, Mom." I go, "Yeah, it does." Their dad's in prison, their dog died, we lost our house.
Yeah.
So
Our pets' heads are falling off.
I
It's
know,
like,
like what the heck? So yeah, that kind of changed everything. And but during that time, that's when Lou and I really, really got so connected.
mhm.
It's crazy, like you think because the man who got Lou in prison, his girlfriend committed suicide. Yeah, and I remember getting a call from Lou, and he was just like, he was so fearful I was going to leave him. And I had
Mm.
lots of people like, I'm surprised you stayed with him, or I'm surprised you're staying. And it's like, I mean, he's only going to be in prison for 2 years. I think I can do this. And it was
Right.
difficult. I was working as a teacher's aide, so I had to get two other jobs. And, I had supporting two kids, lived in my
Mhm.
brother's dining room for about 4 months, wound up getting a townhouse. And my kids, I will say, are probably the most amazing children ever because they left a 3,500 square foot home to live in a, dining room,
Mhm.
to then me finding a townhouse, and it was like the Taj Mahal to them. They were like, "This is amazing." They were so excited, this little 1,100 square foot townhome, right? And
Mhm.
I'll never forget that because, a lot of people, I think we want our children to not feel pain and we don't want them to. Even now, I don't want to. I just did a post just the other day, like I'm an inherent fixer. I'm going to fix everything. I'm going to make everybody okay. And even when Lou was really, when he was dying, and I was like, here, I was like giving him this and giving him that and little tinctures. And he just looked at me, he said, "Babe, you can't fix this." And I remember
Mm.
just looking at him and I was like, "No, you let me fix it." Obviously, I didn't. But I even still, I'm trying to fix it. And just this past, I would say the week before, last week, I was like, I think I was sobbing pretty much every day. I was like, I gotta get on medication? Like, what is going on? I'm just so sad. I'm like, oh, well, wait, I guess I can be sad because my husband died. But then on Monday, I just kind of had this, and I will say, Matt, as a believer, I pulled away a little bit from God because
Mhm.
I was like praying, and the Bible says, pray and your prayers will be answered, ask in his name and it will, come. And I was going through all the scripture and everything, and yet um you read scripture and it's like, oh, do I have unconfessed sin? Do I have this? Is there something wrong? Like, why are my prayers being answered? And um
Mhm.
you know I was like, I don't serve that kind of a God. I don't serve this
Mm.
manipulative, like you have to be perfect for me to answer your prayer.
Mm.
And I remember looking out a window. Then it was the night before Lou died. We had put a catheter in him, and I regret it.
Mhm.
I regret it. Um, it's just awful. He suffered that night. It was just terrible.
Yeah.
He whimpered, and I was on the phone like probably every 2 hours with the hospice people. And finally at 5 in the morning, I'm like, you need to get your butts here. Either you get here or I'm going to Google it and I'm going to get this catheter out of him. And the lady showed up and she's like, oh, because in the middle, she's like, well, it sounds like he's sleeping because he was snoring. And I'm like, no, he's whimpering and snoring. You get your butt here. So they did, and they took it out, and Courtney helped me, and even still, like Courtney's like that night still haunts her because
Mm.
she saw her daddy in so much pain, and anyway, I remember just looking out the window and just being like, God, like please, please just take him. Like I don't want you to take him, but please. At the time, I literally was like, I don't want you to take him, but please answer my prayer because I don't want him to suffer anymore. And I remember, you know, um, maybe a week later, I was like, oh, he does answer prayers, even though I was like, you didn't answer the prayer I wanted, and people, and I was so specific because people were like, well, he did answer your prayer because he's with Jesus now. And I was like, no, he didn't answer my prayer.
A- And that just makes you want to just,
Oh, oh,
like,
you got it.
don't give me coffee cup platitudes right now.
I, you know, it's so funny that you say that, Matt, because I would tell people, and like well-meaning people, and this is why I guess my journey of
Yeah.
now is like really sharing grief, because grief, we don't talk about grief. We talk about joy, we talk about happiness, we talk about all the other bullshit stuff that we all
Right.
want all the time. Of course we do. We all want to
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
mountaintop experience, but guess what? You can't have the mountaintop experience unless you experience the valley.
Hmm.
And if you don't experience the valley, you'll never really truly be grateful for the mountaintop experiences. And I know that
Yeah.
mountaintop experiences is going to happen again, but uh, but I experienced the valley. And when people will be like quoting scripture to me, and I know they're and I well-meaning, but I will say to them,
Yeah.
look, you cannot wrap my grief around a couple scriptures. You can't. You can't, there's nothing that's going to envelop this. I have to walk through this very, very hard, awful experience and loss. And I think that's why I am sharing so much on social media, because I want people to know like this is normal. I'm just going to say
Right.
statistics prove we're all going to die, 100% of us. So, so
Yeah.
if you think you're going to scathe out of this life without trials, without problems, no, it's going to happen. And so
Right.
that's where I think like that deep seated faith comes, and my faith has been rocked. I'll just say that, and I'm being real with people. I don't, because people were like, well, Jesus, and Jesus, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm a little angry at him, and I think he's okay with it. We've had lots of arguments, lots of discussions. I will say, this past week, him and I have gotten a lot closer. I've been listening more. I've been understanding, like life and being okay. I'm not okay with Lou being gone, but being okay where I'm at and I've stopped, like I was telling Courtney last night, we were sitting around and I said, I view myself in the last maybe month of like Sarah trying to figure things out and manipulate. Oh, I could be a rover. I could be a dog walker. Maybe I can do Instacart. Maybe I can do this, because I did lose. I lost income. I lost probably 30 grand a month coming into our house. So that puts fear in us. When we lose like stability, right? And and yet, it's like, well, I still have food on the table. I'm only able to pay my electric bill. I've got this. I, live with my kids, and we're able to, work together. And in my grief, I don't need to be rushing around and trying to figure it out for God, because God already. If I
Mm.
believe, which I do believe, that there's a plan and it's set out into the future already. And all I have to do is just be like Abraham and step forward and um, just trust that I'm going to get there. And it's working out. His plan is working out according to what he has that's good for me, which is very difficult for someone who is a doer. Like, wait,
Yes.
God, I can do it. He's like, you're not doing that great of a job. So could you just let me? I'll take care of it. Okay.
Yeah. How how has it been for you trying to focus on what is good when things aren't good right now? Because, like you said, you're definitely in a valley. There is. I remember I had a conversation with a friend years and years ago. They had found out that there was a um, genetic thing wrong with the baby, and that basically, pending a miracle, the baby wasn't going to live long after it was born. I remember sitting there, and it was in a small group setting uh, with North Coast back when they were called growth groups, and we're sitting there, and I was like, and they were telling us this, and I'm sitting there, and we go to pray, and I start the prayer with, God, this is bullshit.
Mm,
And the guy came up to me afterwards. He goes, dude, he goes, thank you for acknowledging that this sucks.
mm-hmm,
Because so many other Christians want to try to pretend or distract or run from the pain that we find ourselves in.
mm-hmm,
Have you found yourself in the last few weeks starting to kind of embrace the goodness of the ungoodness and
mm-hmm,
the pain? Like how is that? Because like you said, I mean, it's just been
mm-hmm.
roller coasters as your body and your mind and your spirit is trying to come to grips with what is the now. How has that been, and what has been giving you rest? What's been giving you hope? And for those days when um, you just want to shut the door, close the shades, and just lay in bed all day, what gets you out of bed to keep going?
Well, first of all, it's okay if you do shut the doors and you lay in bed and you close all the windows, right? It is okay. I remember hearing,
Yeah.
I think Chad had shared with me, it was an artist that he really loves, and his wife died of cancer.
Mm.
And Chad, the one of the lyrics, this man wrote a song about it, right? And it's kind of like just like a poem with a melody, really. And but one of the
Okay.
lines that he said was, "I don't, um, I don't want to make sense of this because it's just dumb."
Mm.
And I think that there's like people will say, "Well, there's learning in this. There's learning in this." And honestly, I'm
Mm.
like, I don't know what I don't want to learn from this pain like this.
Mm.
I know that there is a learning, but right now, I it's okay for me to feel and have the emotion
Mm.
of sadness. It's okay for me to cry. It's okay for me to be angry. It's okay for me to express it how I want to. And what's interesting is there's people who have stepped into the arena with me that I never thought would. And there's people that I thought would be in the arena with me that are not in the arena. Because guess what?
Mm.
Grief makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like I've had people reach out to me that I'm like, I never thought that person would ever, like, but
Yeah.
I will say there's two women that, oh, there's three actually, that the night that Lou was dying, I think it was probably 2 nights before, filled with fear. Like it was like, I was so afraid for Lou. Because I'm like, what if this isn't? What if there isn't heaven? What if this? And I'm just
Mm.
being real, like, because you know what? We're human. And I think, if we like romanticize everything. And we're just like, yes, there's heaven and there's a hell and there's Jesus and he's going to be in the arms. And all of a sudden I was like, and I knew it was the enemy. I felt the oppression, but I couldn't get out of it. And it was in the middle of the night. One of my friends who I've known forever, but we hadn't talked. And she messaged me and she said, "Don't be afraid." She's like,
Mm.
and it was, she just talked me through it. I had another person do the same thing. Just message me during the night, "Don't be scared. It's going to be okay."
Mm.
And those texts stay with me forever because if it was like God knew, like she's scared, call her, text her, let her know
Right.
it's going to be okay. And that those people who stepped into the arena knowing it's ugly, it's uncomfortable, not knowing what to say, because people are like, "Well, I don't know what to say, so I don't want to say anything." Well, no. How about if you just sit with that person? We don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And
We want to fix.
yeah, 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 because we think we're going to do it, and we're not. And I will say this past week, got Jesus and I have gotten a lot closer, and I've been able to, like, okay, deep breath, Gina, you got this. And then 2 seconds later, I'm like, "Got what? I don't got anything." you know,
I don't got it. I don't
I
got
don't
it.
got it. Yeah, I do a lot of that, and I've stopped saying I'm sorry for crying because I'm crying, a lot. But you know, yeah.
Yeah. The man, if you could give um from what you've learned over the last several weeks, what then that thing that has helped spark light or life into the situation for you and the family, what would be one thing or maybe two things that you would share with someone opposite you in the exact same situation that isn't a cheesy Christian platitude that we all like to throw out to make us feel good. It's not to serve the person grieving, it's to make us feel good because we're uncomfortable with their grief. What's the tangible realness that you have felt and learned that you think someone in grief would find life from?
You know, I think the biggest thing is don't rush it.
Mm,
He's okay. He's okay with our anger. He's okay with our doubt.
mm,
He's okay with our roller coaster of emotions. Um, when it's funny. I think it was it kind of started with the elections a long time, maybe a few years back, right? I started to go like, "Am I a Christian?" Because I started noticing like how Christians were acting, and I was like, I'm not like this, like I was like watching things, and I was like, Am I really a Christian? Because so I started questioning then, I mean, I knew I was, but I was kind of like, I don't think this is how we should be acting. If God is the head of everything, why are we so focused on these people, right? But that's just a side
right.
note. But then when Lou did pass, um, no Christian word was going to make me feel better.
Mm,
Um, what made me feel better was that I knew that people were standing in my corner. I knew that people were praying for me.
mm,
I knew that people were like, and the people who listen to me and hear me say like whatever I was feeling, doubt, or like mad at God, or I had people say, "Well, Jesus died on the cross. The Father sent his Son to die. He understands death, and why we should like accept that." And I was like, "Yeah, you know what though? Jesus died for a purpose." And he actually went willingly to the cross. He didn't want to go, but he willingly went to the cross. But he also is God. He knew that there was a purpose and a plan. I couldn't see like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. My husband's dying. Um, what's his sacrifice for?"
mm.
So I didn't. I honestly, I hate when people tell me that because I just want to punch them. I want to throat punch them. honestly. A few times I've
You,
wanted to throw
you,
punch people.
I think you should do it at least once.
Yeah,
Word will spread.
seriously.
Stop saying that kind of
But
stuff.
I think the aha moment for me was is that you can be in a very, very deep, dark place. You can be in a very deep, dark place, and you can doubt, and you can have all the anger and all the sadness, and you don't have to push through it. You can actually sit with
Mm,
it and allow yourself to
mm,
feel those emotions and let your grief be as it is, because we're all going to grieve differently. For me, I journal. For me, I write. For me, I post things. For me, I've been hiking a lot. I just talked to a woman yesterday who I don't even know. She just said your content really soothes me. Her sister died. She was 69,
mm,
died suddenly. She's lost. And she said, I saw your thing about getting out and walking. And she goes, I can't. And I said, well, I said, you can. And I said, just get out for 5 minutes. Go sit on your porch. You don't have to go out. So it's just encouraging others, like not encourage them in their faith, because people, if you're a believer, you know it, right? But you just
mhm,
need to like get kind of to the other side of things. And I'm not
mm,
to the other side. Grief isn't something we move on from. We move with it. Lou's always going to be with us. We're always going to be moving with it. There's
mm,
no there's no getting over it. And
mm,
I hear people say, "Well, once you get to this side, like," and I'm like, Then there's no
mm,
getting to another side. It's moving with it, but having
mm,
more joy in it and seeing the beauty of what is unfolding, because things are starting to
mm,
unfold. And when you see more and more of it unfold, and you see like, oh, I see what you did there. You brought that person. Oh, okay, I see the beauty in the sky. Oh, I can I can lay down now without being my mind going in all these different places. I can trust you. And that, honestly, I believe is everybody has an individual process with that. And they should find people that they align with that'll love them through that, because that's what I've experienced.
mm. That's absolutely beautiful. Um, yeah, I love what you said earlier too about God's not scared by your anger. He's not scared by your grief. He's not scared. Um, I I've had to tell a few people going through things that hey, if the divine is shaken or deterred by your fist shaking and your anger and your cursing, that's not a powerful, loving God.
Amen. Hmm.
Um, the fact that He wants to be with you in this shit shows how loving and great He is. But you're right. It's everything in us wants to squeeze out from under it. We want to get through it as quickly as possible, um, and I think that causes a lot of us to. Um, it's almost like grief is like a backpack we have to put on. That, like you said, like we just it's a part of us now. It's
Yep.
what we're going to be carrying indefinitely. There's be times when it's lighter. There's be times when it's heavier. Um, but we can't distract from the burden we're carrying. Um, you got to sit in it as much as it sucks. And if it takes you being quiet, be quiet. If it takes you shaking your fist at God and cussing him out, he can handle it.
Hmm.
He can handle that. Um, and I think it's absolutely beautiful um, how over the last several weeks, the ups and downs, the roller coasters, the times of being completely broken down and succumbing,
Hmm.
because there's times where like we allow ourselves to be in it. There's times when we just succumb to the weight. Um, and in what I've been able to witness and watch your journey, and with Courtney and Chad and with Judah and all the family and stuff that's been surrounding you guys. Um, it's been beautiful to watch your slowly being willing to sit in it
Hmm.
as much as it sucks and as much as it hurts from the outside. Um, it gives me hope that if I ever get hit and sideswiped with grief that I'm not expecting, that his love will still be there, even when I try to push it away.
Hmm.
Um, so Gina, you've given me hope in how you've been navigating this season for you and your family. And I just want to thank you for taking the time, making the time to sit with me, share a little bit about where you're at, because your story's my story.
Mm.
I might not, it may be a little bit ahead of me, um, but at some point, there's going to be a part of my story that aligns with yours. And I'm going to remember. I remember when Gina said,
Mm.
I remember when Gina shared, I
Mm.
remember when Gina pointed back to the divine and said, and it's I'm now better prepared uh,
Mm.
because you've lived it first and you were willing to share. So
Mm.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Absolutely love you guys, um,
Love you too.
and super grateful that we met. Oh my gosh, 15 plus years ago.
Yeah,
I
you're a baby.
remember I was a baby. Um, I I remember um, I remember the relationship you and Lou had, the love
Mm.
that just radiated from you guys, the closeness and love that you guys had. And I remember Lou's silliness
Mhm.
that even when you guys moved back into the area and I had an opportunity to hang out with Lou a few times several years ago, um, the silliness of that man.
Mm.
Um, in spite of all the other things that had happened, the things that you guys had been through, um, he never lost his silliness. In the you posting the videos of him dancing with Judah,
Mm.
knowing that he's in pain,
Mhm.
knowing that he's not healthy, and still he's like, I'm going to choose to be silly.
Mhm.
Um, Pain and hurt and grief doesn't have to mean silliness no longer exists.
Exactly.
We can play like kids. Um, so thank you for the reminder that Dad's got it and I can just be a kid.
Yeah, I think it's power, right? And
Yep.
uh, and just like I said, there's none of us are exempt from grief or sorrow. It's going to enter your life, and if you align yourself with people who are speaking like the freaking truth, it's just my personal opinion, like let's not sugarcoat stuff anymore. Let's not
Yeah.
play Christian. Let's be people and
Yeah.
love each other through good, bad, all of it, the ugly. And no one wants to be in the ugly. Personally, I don't like being in the ugly. I do my
It
hair,
sucks.
and now but deep ugliness is no one wants to be there, but we're all going to be there. So
Right.
I appreciate you, Matt, so much. I think your one text that you sent me was I love you, mama. And it touched my soul because it's like, oh, you saw, and I've saved it. So thank you for loving us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love you guys. And maybe we'll have another conversation as things progress and as you continue to walk with, not through.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that. Thank
Awesome.
you so much.
Awesome. Absolutely. Love you.
Love you too. Okay, bye bye.